Hey everybody, Chris Baker here from LuckyGunner.com. A couple of months ago, I had a chance to take the Sentinel Concepts Practical Shotgun course taught by Steve Fisher. Since the 90s, Steve has offered training on handguns, carbines, shotguns, low-light shooting, and law enforcement tactics, among many other topics. Very few still active instructors have taught the defensive use of shotgun for as long as Steve. At the end of the class, he was kind enough to stick around for a few minutes to answer some questions for us.
Let's talk about shotguns.
We'll start off with an equipment-related question. I asked Steve about the most common hardware failures he witnesses in shotgun classes.
One that we see a lot is the old Remington, like 2-piece, 3-piece male-female connector mag tube extensions. They always rattle apart on a gun. Constantly, every course they rattle, they fall apart. That's one. Side saddles. Certain side saddles were very prone to breakages under hard use, and that's a lot of slugs, a lot of buck, that kind of thing. So we saw a lot of breakages of side saddles. They've gotten better. Obviously, the Aridus Industries one is pretty much bomb-proof, have had zero issues with that. Then you also have, going into it, all the bolt-on stuff guys want to throw on these guns, right? They want to throw pick rails on them. They want to put side saddles plus pick rail plus, 12 inches of rail going down over the top of the barrel, heat guards, heat shields, all these things they find every sharp edge, right? The gun is simple. It doesn't have to be complex, right? It does not. I need a good set of sights. I need a solid white light on the gun, and then I need a way to hold extra ammo on the gun. And honestly, a lot of that could be solved with guys who just get some Velcro on it or an Aridus. If they just got a good white light, preferably a dedicated one, such as the Surefire 4N light, which I choose, but I know, again, expensive. So even a good chunk of pick rail on the gun and a good white light. And that's all they need. But everybody likes to accessorize these things like it's an M4, and it's not. Right? It's a lot more violent weapon. It's a lot more violent gun. It puts a lot more shock and energy into all those parts. And a lot of it is user-induced error because they won't either Loctite, witness mark, or actually take it out and see what it does. And then they find those failure points of those things that they've attached to the gun that it really ultimately doesn't need. Loading shells backwards is a big one, especially coming out of bags and pouches. They start to mass load things, and they don't take that pause to feel for the brass. They just dump around in the action, and they're like, and the gun's locked up, right? And there's this problem that they have. Then they start to panic, and then it all sets in, and it turns into a train wreck. Ultimately, it's like, hey, man, just take a breath, relax, look at it, figure out how to load the gun correctly. And it happens, right? Every class, I've done it. Others have done it. We see it happen. The other big one that I often see with shooters, especially when they're trying to go rapid with the gun, is short stroking the action on a pump. And then they get this half kind of load thing, and they end up sometimes even double feeding the gun. And then they've got all this tension and pressure built up, and then they're trying to freak out over that and say, hey, this is easy. Reach in, pull one out, alleviate the problem, get the tension off. The other big user-induced error is often the way guys will hit buttons on semi-autos to release the bolt home, and they will often get digits in the way and get a stoppage of some sort to where it doesn't close the bolt all the way, and it's an open bolt failure on the gun. But it's usually the biggest user-induced error is loading around backwards into the gun, and then short stroking. Be better with the gun, for one. Be more precise in your zeroing and patterning, just like you would a rifle or a handgun with either a red dot or iron sights. Zero the gun, true the gun, get good information and data out of that load selection out to those distances. Look at your layout where you're going to use the gun, right? Most importantly, indoors, inside a structure, if that's your thing. Think about the background, think about the foreground shots, where points of domination may be with the gun. Think about positional changes with the gun based on that information. By positional changes, I mean I could take a knee and shoot upwards on an angle, minimizing that issue. I could also shoot downward and take another selection if I chose to shoot pelvic girdle with a shotgun. It's crushing to a pelvic girdle region, right? So there's ways that people will talk about things, but it's like, hey, you have alternate options to place those shots based on foreground, background, and a lot of that is wherewithal of training and pre-gaming and pre-planning. Everything has the potential of over-penetration. Everything has the potential of a miss. A lot of that is absorbed with a lot of energy based on the wall structures, what else you're impacting in that foreground, background. So, and a lot of that energy is dissolved. If I was living in a confined space apartment, 400 or 500 square feet, paper thin walls of that nature, I would probably end up downloading my selections like number 4 buck, right? Bare bones minimum, just because hopefully more pellets, a little bit more spread out of that load, but not as big of pellets, a little less over penetration issue. Depending. right? What is it hitting? What is it impacting into? I am a double odd and number 1 buck guy. 4 is my last bare bones minimum choice based on structures. Like I said, I've got a buddy who lives on a boat and in an RV most of the year and chooses number 4 buck just for that reason. But I think too much emphasis is placed on it and not placed on actual shooting and getting data out of the gun. A lot of people have lived with an M4 their whole life, right? That's the only gun they've ever known, either through the past 20 years of service, working with that gun through military, some law enforcement applications where the patrol shotgun has kind of faded away and all they've ever really known is a carbine. Yes, there is an ammunition capacity deal, except the problem is that I have 8 to 9 pellets in most double-aught buckshot. So if I do the math, I still have greater capacity than an M4. 30 round standard capacity, great. But I will expend a lot of that capacity sooner by firing more rounds out of that gun because each shot is sending out 8 to 9 pellets. So I'm reducing capacity faster. But what I'm getting is a better energy transfer. I'm getting a lot more lethality out of that gun a lot sooner, requiring less rounds fired. So there's a trade-off. Weight, size, benefit ratio, a carbine, 14.5, 16-inch gun, stock extended is about the same as most 18-inch barreled shotguns. Weight, they're still in that 7 to 8 pound capacity range. So it's a moot point. People are like, they're violent. Well, yeah, they can be, but if you manage it, and you manage it well with recoil mitigation, right? Either porting or technique, it's not that bad. And how long are you actually shooting the gun and what is the job with the gun in the roll? Like, I'm not going to be in a protracted firefight with it somewhere. It's in my living room. It's in my bedroom. Where do you want to be with the gun and what is the need of the gun, right? If it's just a gun that's shoved in the corner of the bedroom, you need to put 5, 6, 7, 8 shells in it. You need to know how to operate the gun, mount the gun, put it in the general direction, get a gross sight picture, press the trigger. Reason being, we have spread of the gun, right? We have spread of the pattern density of the shot shells. Falling back on that, well, shot technology has caught up obviously over the past years with federal flight control, Hornady, critical duty, critical defense, the old Spear Lawman loads that pattern extremely tight. That requires a little bit more refined aiming of the gun because of that shot column is now about the size of a slug. And that is a real thing. So it does require just a little bit more finesse and fine tuning on that. And while it can be considered kind of a point and shoot interface, it's not always beneficial at that point, right? You may get lucky, you may get away with something, but you still realistically should mount the gun, get a good enough reference/sight picture that is enough to complete the task, and just press the trigger. But you still should aim this gun. It is easy to miss. We saw it here, right? I see it in almost every class. C-zone steel, guys running birdshot, 490 some pellets, and they will completely put a round high left over the top of the shoulder of a target because they've disregarded the mount. They try to shoot the steel and they're not shooting the sights. You still need them. And the internet is wrong if they disagree with that. Fact. Show up to class. I'll pay for your way. I don't care. More people are spending more time behind the internet instead of actually being out on the range. And it's not my class, somebody else's class. Go to a course, right? It's time, it's effort, it's money, it's energy away from the family. You don't always get the nuances for free from a video on the internet, but everybody wants it for free. They expect this now in this era that we're in of internet information and video and YouTube and Instagram and all these things. Like, they almost demand, like, the times I get information from people like, well, you should do a video on that. I'm like, maybe you should just come to a class, right, and learn the little detailed parts of it, because there's pieces that will always be missed. Videos are great. They're awesome teasers. They are great for getting people interested in stuff, but then people want the rest for free. They want, I don't come to your job and ask you for this for free. Don't ask those that are in the training committee for it all for free either. It's a trade-off. Yeah, don't be lazy.
A huge thank you to Steve Fisher for talking with us. Check out the classes he has available at sentinelconcepts.com. Let me know if you guys like this format, and I'll try to get some more instructor Q&As posted later this year. And as always, the next time you need some ammo, be sure to get it from us with lightning fast shipping at luckygunner.com.